I want the American people to understand how this works in Washington. As long as you're spending other people's money, no one bats an eye. But the second you want to save taxpayer dollars, the swamp cries wolf, or in this case, unprecedented constitutional crisis. This breathless, fake outrage from the left is utterly insane.
They are advocating that the U.S. military work with taxpayer-funded State Department USAID funds to destabilize nations. That is unacceptable. I don't care who wrote it. USAID needs to come down and condemn it. They need to provide oversight to Congress on exactly where our tax dollars are going. And I know I might be at 17 seconds with our time, but sir, I hope that you agree. Can I, yes or no, do you agree that this is wrong, period? Should this be happening?
I think the military should be held accountable. I think it's nonsense.
And should USAID condemn it?
Nonsense to suggest that AID wrote that.
Should they condemn it?
The military should.
Should USAID also condemn this?
Of course, we don't comment. AID.
The USAID rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper, and now Congress is officially involved, and they're not holding back. Senators and representatives are absolutely tearing into the corruption we've been uncovering, and leading the charge is none other than Rand Paul, Mark Green, and Anna Paulina Luna. They're exposing the waste, the deception, and the disturbing reality of how taxpayer dollars are being funneled through USAID in ways that defy all logic and accountability. I've got a few clips to share with you guys, but let me tell you, Rand Paul steals the show. He absolutely lays out the facts with surgical precision, exposing layers of corruption that are not just infuriating, but downright disgraceful. This is the kind of oversight the American people voted for. We've been demanding it, and it's finally happening. Now, we were told transparency was a priority. We were promised accountability. And now, thanks to leaders willing to ask the tough questions, the truth is finally seeing the light of day. Let's get into it.
I want to start out by saying initially I think the idea behind USAID was done with a good intention. However, we've come to find out that the agency has indeed, to a certain extent, operated in a rogue capacity. And USAID has absolutely broken the trust with the American people and not been transparent about where our taxpayer dollars are going. There's an individual by the name of Mike Benz. He actually served over at the State Department for a while, and he's been going on to expose a lot of what USAID has been doing, which, being a member of oversight and being on this committee, I wanted to verify and see if he was telling the truth, which, much to my disappointment, he was. And I say that because I'm disappointed that our taxpayer dollars are funding some of these items. I mean, to just put this in perspective, in 2021, the Special Operations Command under Mark Milley, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, put out an instruction manual, a vision for 2021 and beyond, that contained instructions and examples on how the military could work with the State Department, Intel Services, and USAID using race riots. Here's examples of some of the instruction manuals here, 1 and 2, in order to destabilize nations. In addition to that, they advocated for setting up job fairs near some of these riots so that disaffected workers could gain employment. Now, as a member of Congress, I ask myself, did anyone in USAID get elected to Congress? How about to a presidency? When you are acting in the shadows and you are destabilizing nations using race wars to do it and then advocating that the military does it, in my opinion, not only do you put the future generations that would have to fight in those wars in jeopardy, but at the end of the day, you're operating without any oversight. So I guess the question for you guys is, Mr. Natsios, is that something that you were aware of? Are you aware that that instruction manual is being promoted not just with the military under Milley, but that USAID may be operating in this capacity? Because in my opinion, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of many of my constituents, I don't think that's where our taxpayer dollars need to be going.
Well, I completely agree with you. Personally, I doubt very much that what you've been told is accurate. But let me just tell you. Look,
I'm telling you right now, I brought the receipts, okay? And the reason, I'm not trying to argue with you, but I find this disturbing on so many capacities. And I would like to also just, if I can, sir, Mike Benz, what he's exposing and bringing receipts, I've confirmed it. Thank you for doing that on behalf of the American people, because I understand that when you take on the intelligence agencies, We're also now finding that apparently in this manual that they're also advocating for social media campaigns illuminating controversy to a global audience. I mean, using disinformation campaigns. Is this happening here in our own country? Where's the oversight?
Just to ask you, who in the agency, what bureau,
I just said, you can actually find that instruction in this manual that Millie approved.
military manual, isn't it?
Yes, but Millie approved it. You have it right here, USAID, working with government agencies. I mean,
Yeah, but
this is not.
Wait a second, did AID say that, or did the military say AID?
Well, that would be the question for you, sir.
Well, I don't
mean,
think
these
AID
operations,
wrote that.
sorry to interrupt you, these operations that are taking place without government oversight, without the authority of the president, without the authority of Congress, real men and women serve and they die because of stuff like this. When you destabilize nations without any oversight, we have to fight those wars. You have our chairman right here that literally risked his life. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm frustrated. I know it's not necessarily your fault.
But I'm telling you,
but
it's
as a head of
nonsense.
agency, that's not.
I'm telling what Ben's told you is nonsense.
That's not nonsense. These are the information and
AID
forms. And
didn't write that.
Ben's put this out to the American
AID
people.
did not write that,
Sir, I
Congresswoman.
disagree with you on so many levels, and I appreciate you being here
How do
today
you
because
know
this
they
is
wrote
not
it?
easy. How do I know what?
Any person can write AID's name into a manual. It goes on all
Sir,
the time.
they are advocating that the U.S. military
Not
work
the-
with
and not
taxpayer-funded State
AID.
Department USAID funds to destabilize nations. That is
Someone in
unacceptable.
special-
I don't care who wrote it. USAID needs to come down and condemn it. They need to provide oversight to Congress on exactly where our tax dollars are going. And I know I might be at 17 seconds with our time, but sir, I hope that you agree. Can I, yes or no, do you agree that this is wrong, period?
I
Should
think
this
the
be
military
happening?
should be held accountable. I think it's
And should
nonsense.
USAID condemn it?
Nonsense to
Should
suggest that
USAID
AID
condemn
wrote
it?
that.
Should they condemn it?
The military should.
Should USAID also condemn this?
Of course, we don't
Thank you.
comment. AID does
Chairman, I
not
yield my time.
comment on military
Thank
manuals.
you, sir.
Hey, deny till you die. Goodness gracious. But what she just described, doesn't that sound like what they were trying to implement in this country during the quote unquote summer of love, which really should be called the summer of hate, the summer of divisiveness? Doesn't it sound eerily familiar to what they were trying to do here? Create and cause dissension amongst the races in this country so that they can gain control, destabilize and gain control, get the people to turn away from the constitutional republic into, something far more sinister? Doesn't that sound eerily familiar? Let's check out Rand Paul. He absolutely goes off.
Thank you. The accusation or criticism has been made that this is an unserious hearing full of conspiracy theorists. Well, the Democrats were asked to participate like they always are, the same way we were when we were in the minority. They could have brought a witness. They chose not to even bring a witness. I can't conjecture as to why, but maybe it's because it's so embarrassing, the stuff that USAID is spending their money on. Who could possibly be against ending $2 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala? I mean, who wants to defend that? I haven't heard anybody yet defend the waste and malfeasance that's going over there. $3 million for girl-centric climate change. Maybe there's not a witness here. Maybe it's not serious. But I don't hear anybody explaining why we should continue to do that. Now, there is a legal question. There is a legal question. If there's $40 billion in USAID and they don't spend it at all and it just sits there, can the president impound it? This is a real question, and it may come to that. But I don't think any court is going to find that the executive branch cannot pause and audit spending. I mean, to crassly say and just to jump to this, it's illegal, it's unlawful, it's a tragedy, it's constitutional chaos. Well, auditing spending is what government should do. It's the traditional oversight that hasn't been done in a generation. That's why we're finding this stuff. It's been creeping up for a generation. $4.8 million for social media influencers in Ukraine. I mean, if people want to defend that, step forward and defend it. We are finding waste and malfeasance. You also have to realize that when you have a social agenda, and your social agenda is, LGBT, well, when you take that to a conservative country that has religious problems with that, and you want to foist it on them and fly flags, what ends up happening is That doesn't increase diplomacy. That actually goes against diplomacy. I don't care what people's views are on any of these subjects. You can have any view on LGBT, but it shouldn't be part of foreign policy to force this on everybody around the world. It just isn't part of government and should never be part of government. But we're only finding this out because we have a president with the courage, including the advice of Elon Musk, including the advice of a lot of us, who have been saying for years, we need to look at USAID and make sure that they aren't committing fraud. Look, this morning, the CFO of FEMA was fired because she's spending $54 million on luxury hotels for illegal aliens. My goodness, there's a lot of Americans struggling to find work. Laken Riley's killer, we flew him and put him up in a luxury hotel in New York. He was there for a few months. We spent all of our money on his meals, and then we flew him to Atlanta. And then he drifted over to Athens, and then he killed Laken Riley. Most Americans think that that's crazy and we shouldn't be doing it, but we are only finding it out because for once we have a president with the courage to say no, to go over there and put a padlock on the door and take the name down. But ultimately, there will be a legal question. Can he impound it, or will it have to come back to Congress? I actually, frankly, think the better way is spend about $30 billion and send $10 billion back, and we do a rescission. There is a method for doing that, and I hope that is what is done. But even on the impoundment question, there are questions exactly, and I don't think it's ever made it all the way to the Supreme Court. There is court precedent on it, but we haven't gotten to that. A pause in funding is an impoundment. A pause in funding to do an audit is just good government, frankly. The question I have for the panel is this, though.
Mr. Chairman, may I just inquire?
Sure.
Because the chairman mentioned that we don't have a minority witness. I would suggest, and speaking out of turn here, because the ranking member isn't here and I don't purport to speak for him.
We're docking your time for next week. I'm just kidding.
But I would respectfully suggest that we have Paul Martin, who was fired as Inspector General, come before us.
We didn't deny any witnesses. Your side did not put forward a witness. We did not deny any witnesses. You didn't put forward a witness. So, but I just think it's disingenuous to, to sit there and it is a personal attack on me to call this unserious and a conspiracy, a bunch of conspiracy. It's an attack on our witnesses as well. That is a pejorative, and that's name calling. All right, you're welcome to object to things they say and have facts to counter them, but to call this an unserious hearing of conspiracy theory.
I never used that term, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you said it wasn't serious. You said the hearing wasn't serious. And the thing is, y'all chose not to participate in it, so that's on you.
Maybe we can have a second hearing because this is such an important
We can have a dozen on this. There's so much to talk about. But anyway, I think we ought to be, I'm not criticizing your ranking member for being unserious or a conspiracy theory. He has his opinions. We make our arguments both sides, but if we call names and say, oh, well, your ideas are conspiracy theory, that's a pejorative, and that doesn't get us anywhere, frankly. And because it's also dangerous in the sense that many people who are then say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, well, government should suppress that. This is what went on. We had 23 scientists come forward in Lancet and say that the possibility that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan was a conspiracy theory. And then government promoted back to Twitter and others and met with them on a weekly basis trying to suppress. Facebook for a year and a half said that ideas like mine that it could have come from the lab were to be suppressed. Michael Schellenberger, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind responding to how the government was involved.
When he goes back to when he says, shutting it down for a little bit and doing an audit, that's just good government. He's absolutely right. Honestly, it's just good business. Anytime you're dealing with money, you should have a quarterly audit, if not a semi-quarterly audit, to make sure that the money that's coming in and the money that's going out is being done in an efficient and effective way. That's how you keep your business from, potentially going into bankruptcy. That's how you keep, from, finding yourself in $2 trillion worth of debt on an annual basis. I mean, think about that. $2 trillion deficit every year. That's bad government. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that these people are choosing to turn a blind eye to the waste, the fraud, the corruption, and all of this reckless spending. President Trump campaigned on this. The American people want this. And we're frustrated because every time we hear about a deficit, every time we hear about something along those lines, the thing that comes out of these politicians' mouth, especially those on the left, is we need to raise taxes. We need to tax people more. How about an audit happens, we figure out where the money is going, keep what's good, eliminate what's bad, and you probably won't have to worry about raising taxes on people if you go about it the right way. But it's easy to spend money that's not yours, or even better, easy to spend money that you can siphon back into your own coffers and into your own pockets. These people are ridiculous. But let's check out this last clip from Mark Green.
This entire debate today and the crocodile tears from Democrats just goes to show what's wrong with this town. Not a single Democrat I've heard has expressed dismay at the many examples of crazy, wasteful spending. I don't understand the objection to a deep dive in how we spend our money, but perhaps it's the fact that over the last several weeks, a massive surge has occurred in the search for a criminal defense attorney. That probably says it all. 5 times in this city, any other city in the nation. I'd like to remind the committee that President Kennedy unilaterally created USID through an executive order in 1961. Yet the President Trump, orders a momentary pause after winning a mandate for reform, and Democrats cry, constitutional crisis. This is after 4 years of reckless spending and unrepentant lawlessness from the Biden administration. I want the American people to understand how this works in Washington. As long as you're spending other people's money, no one bats an eye. But the second you want to save taxpayer dollars, the swamp cries wolf, or in this case, unprecedented constitutional crisis. This breathless, fake outrage from the left is utterly insane. And you know what the American people, you know they can see right through it. Let me be crystal clear to those who've been complicit in this betrayal. Firing those involved is just a start. We have a long way to go. And one last point. I want to correct the record on a couple of things. First, Elon Musk and the team that is working does not have access to personal data. They don't have access to your Social Security number. That is a lie. Elon Musk does have a security clearance. He has a top secret security clearance. By God, he makes the rockets for NASA. But the suggestion that he somehow can't be trusted to dig into how we're spending our money is nothing but a smokescreen to hide the corruption and the wasteful spending that has occurred there. And I am personally offended at the left's continued references to 19-year-olds and 21-year-olds in there doing work. There are 19-year-olds who have won the Medal of Honor defending this country. Just because you're 19 doesn't mean you're some child who can't be trusted. It is offensive. And if you're 19 years old out there, 20 years old, and you're serving this country, by God, your service matters. Keep serving. We thank you for that. It would appear that I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, he's absolutely right. Hell, I was one of those 19, 20-year-olds serving this nation back in the day. I was one of them. And I thought it was weird. I thought it was crazy that they kept saying, oh, these are 19, 20, 21, 25-year-old people. Like, there aren't 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds putting their lives on the line on a day-to-day basis for this nation. He's absolutely right. He is absolutely right. Mark Green went scorched earth on him because these Democrats, for whatever reason, they want to continue the status quo. They want to keep things exactly the way it is because they benefit from it. He who yells the loudest is probably the person that's the guiltiest. So the fact that you have these Democrats out here singing songs, they're out here yelling and screaming to anybody that will listen that this isn't right, it's a constitutional crisis, it's an attack on the republic, it's an attack on the country. Those are the people that you need to be looking into. We probably need to audit those folks as well. When you have people like Jasmine Crockett, who hadn't been in Congress long, but worth about $9 million or so they say, allegedly. When you have people like Elizabeth Warren, worth $29 million, almost $30 million, but never made more than 200 grand. You got to question. You got to follow the money. I personally think that audits need to happen on every person in Congress. How are you worth $200 million? How did that happen? How have you been in Congress for a little bit and you're already worth, $8, $9, $10 million? How did that happen? We need to look into those people as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought about this. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Turn those notifications on. Make sure you click the all button so you never miss an upload. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you all next time. Peace.
Vibes so raw, can't hide the truth. Words so sharp,